I am here with Bigfoot expert Jesse Wasilenko. Do you prefer Bigfoot or do you prefer Sasquatch?
I feel like Sasquatch is the Canadian term, whereas Bigfoot was coined in the States in the 60s.
Okay, so what got you into the study of this great beast in the first place?
So I was looking online, I came across as a kid the Patterson-Gimlin footage, which is considered the biggest, most popular Bigfoot video out there. And since then, it was a mixture of the mountains, Bigfoot, all the loves that I have, the unknown, mysteries, and it just became a perfect thing to get into.
Okay, brass tacks time. Do you believe that Sasquatch is real?
I want Bigfoot to be real. I have not came across a sighting myself, so I can't 100% say it's real, but the people that I've talked to, who I believe and who are trustworthy, who have seen it, they've saw something, and I have to believe that what they saw is Sasquatch.
I am in the same boat. Like, I want to believe so bad, and it seems to me that there's so much that we don't know about nature, that it is totally possible, especially where they tend to live. Now, where in Canada does Sasquatch tend to get seen or not seen?
Of the 60,000 or so sightings in North America, the hot spots are from Alaska and all the way down to Northern California. So that would be your best bet, is the Pacific Northwest, the Rocky Mountains, and all the way down to the mountains of Northern California, Sierra Nevadas.
Okay, so go to the mountains, I would say, if you are seeking to have an encounter. Do you think, like, he's dangerous? Like, when you go out and you want to see him, do you really want to see him?
I guess at night everything becomes a little bit more scary. The fact that they've been reported to be nocturnal does make an experience and a sighting that much harder. The thing is, they've evaded our detection for so long that I have to think that they aren't aggressive.
Right, because they don't want us to mess with their business, which makes sense. If they're sentient, if they're a little smarter than your average animal, then they're going to want to avoid us, because humans are bad for nature generally. It's true enough. So, yeah, hopefully technology won't catch up. Now, earlier we were talking about Jane Goodall and the great apes. Like, it hasn't been very long since we detected them.
No. And just in 2008 in Peru, they discovered a bonomo ape, which is a 4-foot tall ape who walks upright, who is primarily nocturnal. So for animals like that to be discovered still in recent times makes it all more possible that we are about to have another discovery. And once you step foot out in the mountains, you can truly experience the vastness of the territory. Just in Alberta alone, there's 1.2 million acres of uninhabited land. There's places that humans have never stepped foot in. And if you look beyond the campgrounds and the popular trails, you're left with an area way more than adequate for a big creature to exist and for us to never see it.
So if I was to hand you a blank check from Punch TV that said, quit your job, do this full time, search for Sasquatches, what would you need and where would you go?
First, I think I would need a FLIR infrared camera. Those have been proven to capture footage at night. I would need a parabolic microphone that can detect sounds in the wild up to 2 or 3 miles away. And you would just need to go where there aren't any people. You need to go past the campgrounds, past civilization, and really head into the wilderness and think about where would you go if you were a Bigfoot? That's, you can find an area that we would call, well, this is a squatchy area. You know it when you're there.
Right. Okay. If I were a Bigfoot, where would I go? Ooh, it's an interesting question for sure. Where would you go? We want to hear from you. So write in and let us know. And yeah, big question. Are Sasquatch? Are Sasquatch real? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jesse. Good luck in your hunt.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Punch TV is brought to you in part by Amazing Stories, providing Saskatoon with comics, games, toys, graphic novels, t-shirts, and more for over 22 years. Online at AmazingStoriesComics.com, in person on 8th Street in Saskatoon.
Bigfoot, commonly known as Sasquatch in Canada, ape-like creatures that inhabit the forests of North America. Evidence of its existence based on numbers of sightings, video and audio recordings. Large footprints found throughout North America, broad shoulders, long arms and eyes that supposedly glow yellow in the dark. You know, this isn't my thing at all. Let me tell you about my brush with the unknown. 1981. Friday, Miss Sanderson says we need you to get swamp water for school on Monday so we can do experiments on what's in the swamp water. So Sunday night, we're heading out to get swamp water. It's about 8 o'clock at night. It's dark. It's getting darker by the second, and we head on our bikes and we go down this gravel road from the city, and we're just flying up this gravel road on our bikes. We finally get to a point, and my friend Warren says, "Hey, that's swamp water." So we stop. He goes in to get swamp water. I'm sitting here on my bike, and I hear this rustling. I stop and I look, and the trees are rustling. And I'm like, didn't really think much about it. And I'm like, "Hey, are you gonna take forever?" And he's like, "I'm almost done." And then I'm like, see the shaking of the trees. And I was like, there is no wind. What is shaking those trees? And I stopped, and it shook again. And I listened, and there was no sounds whatsoever except the tree was shaking. These trees around this one area were shaking. And I was like, what is going on? So then I started to panic, and I thought, something is in those trees. So, of course, I started talking nonsense like, "Hey, Warren, all our friends are showing up right away." I figured if I talked about people showing up here, that thing would be, person or whatever, would be scared as to what's gonna happen. So I started talking about things happening. Warren, in the meantime, he's taking a leak in the swamp. So we're not leaving anytime soon. He's going to the bathroom. I'm talking like an idiot about all these people that are gonna show up, and the shaking stopped. So I'm like, we gotta go. He pulls out these two, he comes up with these 2 bottles of swamp water. I grab mine and I'm going. I get on my BMX. It was a Diamondback, by the way. I get my BMX and I fly home. Halfway home, I stopped, looked back, and Warren was on his way. He was riding his sister's little banana seat bike, so he was taking forever. And he stops, goes, "What is going on?" I go, "There was something in those bushes." I don't know what it was, but we were not alone. There was something in those bushes with us. He's like, "Nah, definitely not. You're like full of crap." So I go home and I lay there in bed all night, and I was like, what was that? Like, it just didn't seem right. I didn't know what it was or what it could have been, but it didn't seem right. Okay. Next day, it's recess. We're up on the big hill. Now, I don't know what happened, but the big hill used to be way bigger and over there. Anyway, so we're up on the big hill, and I really don't remember what we were doing. I think we were rolling down the hill, maybe? I don't know what kids would do on a big hill, but I think that was kind of the idea, is roll down the hill. Anyway, so we're up on the big hill. There's about 20 of us up here. We're doing our own thing. I'm thinking to myself, I really want to tell the story of what happened the night before. I was a little nervous about it, but I wanted to tell my friends the story. So I decide that it's time, and I say out loud, last night, a giant UFO came down out of the heavens and came and he hovered right over the big hill. And it hovered there for a long time, and I was looking out my patio door, and I saw it. It was hovering, and then it took off at speed of light out of here. Everyone kind of looked at me, and then Warren says, yeah, I saw it too.
So that's it? What about the Bigfoot?
Yeah, that's it. That's what happened. That's all that happened. That was the story.
Hey punchers, it's me, Hank, and OMG, look who's here, back with me! It's the pink to my flamingo, the Papa Burger to my cheese, the bestie to the resties, the one and only Tony! Tony, we're back together again, it's been so long!
It's been a long time since I've actually been around people. I've been actually hibernating for the last 7 or 8 years.
It shows.
Oh,
no! Anywho, today on Tweetbeat, we need to put everything you need to be watching, reading, listening to, playing at the bottom of the screen here, because Tony and I have something very important to talk about. Tony, Jody and I were discussing Star Wars the other day, as we do all the time, even when you're not around. She told me something insane that you do not believe, that Chewbacca is a Sasquatch. What?
No, that is crazy talk. There is no way Chewbacca could be a Sasquatch. No
Well,
way.
you're wrong for the second month in a row now. So, Chewbacca, as we know by the end of the most recent Star Wars trilogy,
Yes.
is a middle-aged Wookiee, right? So, he's about 250 years old-ish. Now, there is a Star Wars comic called Into the Great Unknown, where Han and Chewie crash land into Earth about 200-ish years ago in what is now the Pacific Northwest of America. America! So Han ends up dying because they're all like, aliens from this, so the people living there kill Han, he's dead. But Chewie runs off into the woods. They actually call him Sasquatch. He's given the name Sasquatch. Now follow me here, okay? So Chewbacca is now on Earth, in the woods. He's called Sasquatch. And I'm thinking, because it's about 200 some years, he had another 250 good years left to live, so he could still be living in the woods today. Now, George Lucas, you know, I know, based Star Wars on a true story. It's a true story. So I'm thinking he's camping with his family, roasting some weenies. Then Chewie runs along. He meets him. Chewie tells him the whole thing about Star Wars. He remembers it all, steals Chewie's ideas, goes and makes $1 billion off it all. And they're both tall, right? They're both hairy. They're both lonely. They're both savage beasts that often misunderstood by those around them. Chewbacca is the Sasquatch. Case closed.
Believe it! This is my mouth being wide open. Number one, that's a made-up story that did not happen in a comic. That was never in a comic where Han Solo and Chewbacca came to Earth. So number one, that didn't happen.
That is a comic. It's in
Number
the Star Wars
two-
universe.
No, it isn't.
Like
Number
you
two-
don't own it.
No, number two.
Look it up.
He came from the planet Kashyyyk, and that's where he died. Because I saw his death in a comic, so how could he be... Now, that is impossible. There's no way. I will say this, though. I'm going to add to this. What if Sasquatches are Wookiees? So it's not Chewbacca so much as it actually is the Wookiee race. And then they were here because they crash landed with Han Solo. And then they, so it's not Chewbacca so much as it's actually just a Wookiee himself. So Wookiees could be Sasquatch, but Sasquatch is not Chewbacca.
Let's agree to disagree for everything that you should be watching, reading, listening to, playing. Follow at Fisher Cruise and at PunchYXE. My name is Hank. This is Tony. Hopefully, we'll both see you next time on Tweetbeat.
You gotta do the muscle thing.
Well, I can't. I don't have muscles.
Punch TV is brought to you in part by Amazing Stories, providing Saskatoon with comics, games, toys, graphic novels, t-shirts, and more for over 22 years. Online at AmazingStoriesComics.com. In person on 8th Street in Saskatoon.
So have you had any personal experiences with Sasquatch?
I have not had a sighting, but on one of our expeditions, we recorded a Bigfoot call. So we were out with a parabolic microphone and blasting calls from a speaker off the side of this cliff, hoping to hear a response. And we were listening and recording at the same time, and we recorded something calling back to us. So we sent that recording to a professor of linguistics at USC University in California. he returned back with the statement that is not from any known animal origin. So we thought that was pretty cool.
Super cool. Now, this was in Kananaskis. So
Yeah.
why did you pick that spot?
It is one of Canada's hotspots for Bigfoot activity, and we were out there investigating a story that we had heard from an ex-police officer. He would get dropped off in the wilderness for a weekend, and he was camping at night on the side of this hill in a small valley, and he heard something peeing on his tent in the middle of the night. And he said he crept up, he unzipped his tent slowly, and as he did, he looked out, he saw a creature who ducked underneath the tarp that he had set up over top of his site to keep it dry, ducked underneath it, and then hit the tent tarp with the back of his hand. And so he would have had to have been 6 to 7 feet tall at the very minimum to reach those tarps. So to be out there investigating stories like that, that's only one. You know, if you went on to Bigfoot researching sites, you can find sightings in Alberta and BC all the way back to the 1800s, including the Sasquatch tribe, which consider Bigfoot to be a protector of the forest. And they revere it as some sort of spiritual entity.
Wow. Well, we revere Sasquatch too. And I think whether or not you believe that Sasquatch is real or not, to have like stories like that lend credibility, but also to like create a community too of other people who share your same interests must be pretty great.
Yeah, so if you hear someone tell you what they saw and you can do your own judgments, you can really tell the stories that I've heard from trustworthy people. You can tell that they've had this experience and that their belief has changed from, okay, I believe Bigfoot exists, all the way to, okay, now I know Bigfoot exists. I'm going to spend my life searching for that second experience. And that to me, that is, how do you say that they're lying?
Well, I hope that your dreams come true and that you do get that experience somewhere down the road. Thank you again so much for sharing your stories with us.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hey everybody, Craig Silliphant here for Punch TV, and the theme this week, as you know if you've been watching, is Sasquatches. So I've got somebody special to join me. I realized there was a bit of a hole in my film knowledge when it comes to Sasquatch movies, but I know my buddy Boozy, who you might have heard on the Terror Table podcast. It's a great podcast about horror movies and all that stuff. If you haven't heard it before, go check it out wherever you find good podcasts. And Boozy and Kyle and Mitch and sometimes some special guests talk about horror movies. But I grabbed Boozy today because I know he's the Sasquatch guy of the group. So live from Boozy's car, thanks a lot for joining us, Boozy.
How does it sound? Is the acoustics good in my Dodge? The acoustics in a Dodge I heard are great.
Yeah, it sounds great. So I have to admit, like, I don't hate Sasquatch movies or anything, but I don't necessarily, like, obviously haven't seen enough of the appeal to them personally to have gone and watched a bunch. So what,
Right.
like, you love these movies, right? Like, what is the appeal to a Sasquatch movie for you?
I think it's very much the same way. There's a lot of appeal to the legend and lore of something that's gone back like hundreds of, thousands of years. There's always been talk of Sasquatch. So that's always a cool idea to see what people can bring to the myths and legends that they can really add to it. And it's really interesting to think of something that's kind of like a missing link almost in man and history. I think that's kind of cool that it's not rooted in some like supernatural aspect. It's very much this very earthly thing. So I think that's very interesting.
Right. So now, like I said, I haven't seen a lot of these. I remember an X-Files episode where they ran into a Sasquatch, but like, are there certain tropes of the genre, like stuff that you see again and again, or are they able to kind of take it in some like super original directions sometimes? Like, what are some of the tropes that you see?
First and foremost, the biggest trope in Sasquatch movies is Lance Hendrickson. There is no doubt he has appeared in pretty much all of them. I'm not even joking. He's appeared in so many of these things. He just, I don't know, he loves doing it. And I think the other funny thing that is a big trope in Sasquatch horror movies, especially because a lot of times you're dealing with Sasquatch being your antagonist, or is people always try and outrun or outstrength the Sasquatch, and that's just, it's not happening. It's always funny because there's going to be some sort of quick kill or something in these horror movies when something like that happens.
Right. Yeah, I would never try and wrestle a Sasquatch. I don't think that's a good idea. So, like, what are a couple of the Sasquatch movies that people should check out, and which one's your favorite?
There's kind of two that I'm really big on, so I'll just mention both. There's Exists, which I believe is from 2014, and Willow Creek, which is from around that time as well, directed by Bobcat Goldthwait. And they're both just fantastic Sasquatch movies, and really dig into quite a bit of the lore that I kind of mentioned before, that a lot of these small towns that these movies take place in actually do adopt naturally. And I'm also going to mention maybe a movie that isn't formally a Sasquatch movie, but I'll say 2006 Abominable, which is about like a abominable snowman. It's fairly close, same ballpark if you're not splitting hairs. So I also will mention that one.
Is that like a Yeti? If I say a Sasquatch and a Yeti are the same thing, is that like racist or something?
It might be in 2021. I'm not sure, but like for the most part, they're kind of, they're big hairy guys, maybe just a little bit different anatomy.
Okay, well, we've got just a couple seconds here, so I'm going to put you on the spot really quickly. Boozy, do you believe that Sasquatches exist?
Optimistically, I want to say yes.
Okay, good enough. We don't know. We don't have proof, but optimistically, yes. So thanks so much for joining us today, Boozy.
Thank you.
You can hear Boozy on the Terror Table on Apple Podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts. So great horror podcast. So we'll catch you next time. I'm sure there's more Sasquatch stuff to come on Punch TV.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Punch TV. Thanks to Jesse for sharing his awesome stories, and thanks to Sasquatch for making a special appearance. I'm gonna see if I can spot any more. So until next time, keep your dukes up.
Now, many people speculate why you are so hidden, why they cannot find you. Why is it, Sasquatch, you are so secretive with your location? Ladies and gentlemen, Sasquatch is the world champion at hide and seek. We never knew. We thought maybe he just had social issues, but he is competitive. He is a man on a mission. Now, being that you're in Canada, do you prefer Sasquatch or Bigfoot? What is the term you would like to be referred at? Ooh, that's a little controversial. We'll wait that for another expose.